So today I'm really excited to be having the incredible Nkemdilim with us. So this is my new online project where I try to interview women from all over the world, but about Africa. My passion and love and all of my heart goes to this amazing continent. And with this project, I want to be able to bring African women talking about their experience, what they're doing in business and technology, so on and so forth in their own countries, but also any woman who's worked in Africa or has done any type of impact or business in this beautiful continent. So this month of February, will be the month of digital transformation. And today I'm having Nkemdi from Nigeria, and in 2 weeks I'll have Sophie, who is from France but lives in Tunisia. She's Tunisian now. So thank you everyone who are here. This is Conversation That Matter. This is what I think conversations should look like. Type of topics we want to talk about, type of things that we want to put to the lights or put on the table, or just discuss. I'm sorry. So the first conversation is with Nkemdi. Thank you so much for being here. Nkemdi will be, so the theme will be digital transformation in Africa. And Nkemdi is a woman who is on a mission to ensure Africa is not left behind in the fourth industrial revolution. So today we will discuss digital transformations opportunities in Africa, the gap that's keeping us from being part of this technological digital wave, the role of female entrepreneurs in the African digitalization just in general, and the education related to digital transformation. So I'm really happy to be presenting. I've talked so much, my God. I'm really happy to be presenting Nkemdi. We met 2 years ago in Johannesburg, South Africa as Obama leaders. And she's just amazing woman, very inspirational, very professional, such a change maker. She's the CEO and founder of Future Software Resources, where she empowers digital transformation in Nigeria, but across the continent. She is a remarkable woman, by the way. Forbes, yes. Obama, yes. Digital Women Top 100 Inspiring Women in Africa, yes. She has done so much. She's impacted so many people, so many lives. And today she's here to impact us. Thank you, Nkemdi, for accepting to be part of this conversation and for your time. I guess I want to start by asking you to just tell us who Nkemdi is. What brought you here?
Thank you so much, Salmine. This is really, really great. And this is one of my favorite topics. So, when you ask, can we have this conversation, I was super excited, especially because you're targeting a Pan-African audience, and of course, because you're my fellow Obama Africa leader, So who am I? Well, I'm just a woman who is looking to, as you said, really ensure that Africa is not left behind in the fourth industrial revolution, and that we can play a significant role in the digital economy, right? And there are a lot of barriers that we face as a continent and as individual countries. So some of these are a little bit sort of unique to each country. But I think in general, if you really look at sort of the overarching issues, you would have lack of human capital that has the right skills, and you would also have infrastructure as a very major, sort of drawback. And I think those two components really are things that need to be addressed through policy, that need to be addressed, by governments. They also need to be addressed by, the collaborations between the private sector and the public sector. So it's, as I said, one of my favorite topics to speak about, because I think it is so crucial. And I think that there's a really small, sort of window of time that we have as a continent to really jump on this. And, I think that there's also somewhat of a generational digital divide between a lot of the leaders in Africa, unfortunately, that are really, really old and don't understand the benefits of technology and how to use technology for value creation and socioeconomic development, right? And because they don't necessarily understand it, they're not implementing or integrating it into their development strategies. They're not integrating it into their socioeconomic plans, right? So you would see on a lot of the agendas for development in Africa, you would see agriculture and sort of exporting produce as a large component, right? In Nigeria, when we talk about diversifying our economy, right, from away from oil and gas, the first thing on the agenda is agriculture. But if you then, on the other hand, look at countries like South Korea, right? From 1959, when South Korea was the third poorest country in the world, right? They created strategic 5-year plans that were all focused on pretty much digital transformation. That term didn't exist then, but that's what it was, right? And they migrated 87% of their population that worked in agriculture into technology, into innovation, into R&D, into science, right? And we can see the results today, right? The majority of innovative brands and products and innovative technology, whether it is, sort of chips that go into your phones or processors for your computers, they all come from South Korea, right? I think really we need to grab that small window of opportunity and hold on to it for dear life, so that we don't get left behind, right? And so that we also don't become digital colonies where we become the consumers of technology that we have already built, right? So and what we're seeing is that there are innovative companies on the continent, but the funding comes from outside of the continent. And then the companies get offshored and our technology gets taken away and re-imported, and we still consume it, right? But the governments don't actually make money off, sort of taxes. A lot of the employment goes away to people in Silicon Valley or in Estonia simply by offshoring these companies, right? So I think there's a lot of work on the continent, and this is not only in Nigeria, right? In Kenya, if you take a screenshot of founders in Kenya, the majority of them are white, and you're like, Kenya, like how does this work, right? But it's because they have really open policies for founders from America to come in, found their companies, and the governments in these different countries have not really thought about, like, how do you protect intellectual property, because they don't understand the value of it. How do you protect technology? How do you ensure that we have ownership, right? Because the thing is that if you don't own your technology, you don't own your infrastructure, you don't own your data, you own nothing. And that's the truth in the future, right? It's the truth now, and it's going to be the truth even more in the future. I think 2020 was very different, simply because there was no face to it. There was no head. Everybody was unified. And, in Nigeria, where you have so many different tribes, unity is something that is very rare. And it's I think a really special moment for any Nigerian to have witnessed in their lifetime, to see that unity, one voice and a loud one, right? And I think that it scared the government. And I think that this is why the response to it was very, very harsh. But I think that, it is a demonstration that the digital economy can work. It is a demonstration that we have talent. It is a demonstration that we have people with the right skills. It is a demonstration that we have innovation. It is a demonstration that we can come together and create productive solutions for our continent and for our country. And I think that, that really, for me, is very inspiring, and gives me a lot of hope, right? However, when the people who make the policies don't see it that way, and when the people who make the policies, are are pretty much, sort of against, because they don't understand it, then you sort of lose a lot of momentum that could be there, right? And you sort of lose the drive and the steam that you could have, right? Imagine we were all working on a better country, a better continent together using technology, and we had an enabling environment that was supported by the government. Do you know how beautiful Africa would be, right? This is what we need to continue to talk about. And I think this is the message that for me is really, really important when we talk about the continent and we talk about digital transformation, right? There were just elections in Uganda a few weeks ago and they shut down the internet. This to me, just shows the fear of technology, because they know that there is power in it, right? And there's power in organizing, there's power in numbers, there's power in instant communication. And this is something that they don't know how to fight. So they will fight it by taking us back to the Stone Age.
In Africa, we have entrepreneurs of necessity. We saw a necessity and we needed to change something, and we built something to do that. In Tunisia, it's both. So we have entrepreneurs of necessity, but we have also entrepreneurs of opportunity. But we have a lot of bureaucracy that cripples the creation of innovation and digital transformation. And I think that's a lot related to a lot of the procedures and reforms, that financial reforms, it's really hard to do business, I guess, internationally or globally, being in Africa, or I guess I'm gonna just say Tunisia because that's what I know. So yeah, just in general, how Alexander's question is, how do you leverage that, or how do you show people that there is an opportunity there that can help us all? And how do you push for that? So if Nkemdi would say, okay, let's do this, what would that look like?
I think that's really hard, right? Because there are a lot of different components from it. I think there's the component of show and tell, where you just have to go ahead and do it and show that it works before people believe you, right? And if you think about, right, how, and this is how I think most technologies become mainstream, right? So when you think about Elon Musk and SpaceX, it's like, okay, this dude is a bit crazy, like, who wants to go to space? But fast forward 20 years, we'll probably be buying tickets to Mars and going shopping or something, right? And it will become a very normal thing, the same way that you would jump on a plane and go to Dubai. And I think that every single thing that we see as normal today was once considered absolutely crazy, right? So think about, people who were riding on horseback and, or with carriages. And then there was this crazy person who said, oh, we can build a car, we don't need horses anymore, right? And there are some very interesting pictures that actually depict, sort of the journey of how cars became mainstream, right? And in the first picture, it's like a bunch of horses and like 2 cars. In the next picture, it's like sort of like half and half. And then in the last picture, it's like 2 horses and a bunch of cars, right? And I think that that's really, it will take time. I'm hoping not as much. I do think that COVID has been a really good accelerator, even for the public sector across the continent, because suddenly there was a lockdown, suddenly you couldn't go anywhere else, suddenly you had to figure out, how do you do your cabinet meetings, how do you do judicial panels, how do you, do all of these things, right? And they've started integrating technology. And I think that there are, both at the federal and at the state level, some quite sort of, very modern and forward-thinking people in government, right? And I think that the more of those that we get into government, the more we will see more engagement. Now, I mean, every single minister, every single governor is on social media, engaging with constituents, right? If we go back just a few years, maybe 12 years or so, right? You know, there were social media pages for like the president for at the time, right? And it was full of just negative comments, and there were never any single response, right? So just like lots of complaints and just no response. Today, I think that has really changed, and there is engagement, even if the engagement is to say, stop saying that, or you're not right, or whatever it is, but there is engagement. So I think that we are seeing a shift. It's just really slow, and speed is really of the essence. I think, you know, to Alexander's question, you need to, first of all, demonstrate, you know, that things can work, and that a lot of the time takes time. And I think you need to educate and engage. So I think there has to be a lot of conversations. I think that and you have to demonstrate opportunities. You have to demonstrate to the government how they can make even more money than they are making now, how this can become a revenue generation tool, right? Because the minute that they understand how it can generate revenue for the government, they will push for it, because that is really what the government is, you know, sort of looking for, right? They want to generate revenue, but they just don't necessarily understand how, right? And sometimes it also means that, you know, even with companies, right? When you think about digital transformation in a lot of companies and how that looks like, right? A lot of the time you have to cannibalize your own business in order to make that shift, right? Where you take off your own plate by creating innovative new products, and you're taking away from the old, right? But you know that this new one has so much more potential, right? And you just have to let it grow. But it's a painful growth. It's not seamless and easy and fun. It's really painful, because you have to look at, you know, part of your profits are going away. Part of your people have to get fired. So many things are shifting, and human beings are simply not good with change, right? And digital transformation is all about change. So I think it's, again, you have to just be patient. We have to continuously engage. We have to continuously have these conversations. We have to make sure that the people who have the ears of, and you know, and who can get FaceTime with policymakers are educated, right? And I think that is a lot of the issues that we see with trying to engage with policymakers, right? That we're not using the right tone, we're not using the right words, we're not using the right means. We have not been strategic as a young generation to engage. And I think we need to really start thinking about, how do we become strategic? How do we form alliances with people who are influential, who can have these conversations on our behalf, who see the future? If we don't have that, I don't think we're going to make any progress anytime soon.
Honestly, I understand exactly what you're saying, and I do agree. But to what Alexander asked, another thing, and personally, I feel like patience is overrated. Where it's like, honestly, I feel like it's overrated, because we're talking about technology and digital transformation, and like you said, a 9-year-old company changed like overnight, and people like went viral overnight just because of the pandemic. Like what's happening, technology and digital transformation are exponentially growing economies and exponentially changing communities and behavior. And if Africa, or countries, most countries in Africa are taking one step a month, other countries are taking 10 steps a day. And we will be left behind once again. A new revolution, and we are left behind once again. Because I do feel like in this case, in the case of technology and digital transformation and innovation and those types of changes, that patience is overrated. I don't know if you agree with me with that.
Yeah,
Alexander said
it is, but I think, you know, in order to win a war, you need to win many battles, right? And I feel like a lot of, I'm a very also impatient person. I like things like, let's get it moving, come on, let's be fast, right? But I've been doing policy advocacy for 12 years now, right? And I can tell you how little has changed. So I know that you must be patient, you must be consistent, and you must persevere in order for you to make change, right? And because I can also see my dad, and I can see the work that he has put in, I can see the things that he predicted 20 years ago that are happening now, and that if they had listened then, we would be in a very different place, right? So I think the reason why I say that we need to sort of have a different approach and also be more patient is because that is simply the reality, right? There's very little that can change the people at the top, right? Yes, we can try and vote them out the next time, but how do we know that the people who are going to come in know better, will do better, will have more technology knowledge, right? We don't know. We have no guarantees, right? Because most of the time, it's not young people who are running for office, right? It's people who are older, who have a lot of money, who have a lot of friends with influence and power, and they end up in office, right? And it doesn't mean that that can't change, right?
To Richard's question that has to do with digital transformation in agriculture, and that most economies in Africa are based on agriculture or tourism, and that farmers are not digitally savvy. Maybe connectivity does not even exist in those areas, they're remote areas even. How do you think that would work for African countries?
Yeah, so I think that what we're seeing is a very slow digitization, right? And it's on the fringes. And when I say on the fringes, so one of our fellow Obama leaders, Anthony Owe, he runs a platform called ePoultry. And it's basically a platform where people can invest into the poultry ecosystem, right? He then takes that money and invests it into farmers, and he helps them optimize chicken rearing, their hatcheries, and everything, using technology and training them and ensuring that they have access to, better bird feed, that they have access to better facilities, and, understand how to build more modern, chicken coops and all of those things, right? So this, I think, is really important, because when you have funding to make things better, change can happen much faster, right? And the truth is that they say follow the money, right? Every single farmer that sees the benefit of doing this. So if you and I are farmers and you go into Anthony's program and suddenly you have double the chickens that we both started with the same amount, suddenly you have double the amount of chickens. Suddenly, you're using your cell phone to send messages to say, okay, you can pick the eggs now. And I still carry my eggs manually to wherever I'm going to sell them, right? While you sit down and the person comes to pick up your eggs, right? Because you also have higher volumes now, right? At some point, I'm going to be like, please tell me more about this thing that you're doing, right? Because I don't want to be left behind. And I think that we can really leverage the fear of missing out when it comes to engaging in agriculture and in other sectors. So in Nigeria, we have a really big informal sector of artisans and traders. And, what I've realized with them, and I'll tell a little anecdote about one person that I know, it's really about unlocking value, right? So the anecdote is this. There's this guy, his name is Chinedu, and I met him a long time ago, probably 8 years ago or so, and he makes curtains and blinds, and so I introduced him to a lot of my friends, and then I would tell him, like, Chinedu, can you like send me the pictures of the fabric or the pictures of the blinds on WhatsApp? And he's like, I don't know how to use this WhatsApp, and it's complicated. I don't have data on my phone. I'll come to your house. And I'm like, Chinedu, you're wasting your time. Do you know how long it's going to take you to come to my house? Anyway, as I introduced him to my friends, he had more people telling him, we want to see it on WhatsApp. So one day I saw him somewhere, and and I was like, Chinedu, what are you doing? You look so busy. So he was like taking pictures of stuff and in his shop, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he said, oh, I'm about to send an email. It's like, email. Chinedu, what do you know about email, right? And he said, do you know that friend that you introduced me to? She introduced me to one lady that wants to give me a big contract. But the lady said I must send an email. So I went and I opened an email. And now I know how to use the email. And he found some friend that he had that knew how to do it, right? Who helped him to open it. And it was simply because there was a big opportunity that he didn't want to miss out, right? So I think that that can be a strategy of getting technology from the fringes into sort of more of a mainstream environment. And in Nigeria, we have the same issues in terms of infrastructure and sort of connectivity. But there are a lot of, I don't know how popular this is in Zambia, but in Nigeria, we use a lot of USSD codes where you don't need data, you don't need connectivity, all you need is GSM line, right? And you can, through pressing a short code, you can send different actions and do different actions on your phone. And it is super helpful. And I'll give a story to this as well. So there was a day where I went to the filling station and, they filled my car with fuel. Then I realized I forgot my ATM card. At that point, I also did not have data on my phone because my data had run out. And I had said, because I was driving. So I was just like, when I park and get to where I'm going, I can get data. So I was now at this filling station. I'm like, these guys are not going to believe that I forgot my wallet. They're going to think like this lady came here to scam them, right? So I was just like, what am I going to do? So I used the USSD code to buy data for my phone. And then I told the guy, can I do a transfer to your account? And he was like, yeah, sure. So USSD has saved my life. And I think that we need to just look at what are the technologies that we can use that are easy to understand for people who may not be digitally literate and who may also not be actually literate, right? Because I think that also, when we talk about agriculture, rural communities plays a really big role, where there's a high percentage of people who actually cannot read and write. So you need to make it very easy for them. But what I've realized with that is that most people who cannot read and write still know their numbers, because they need to know what numbers are on the different banknotes, right? So my sister used to have a nanny who couldn't read and write. And I was like, how does she answer her phone and how does she know who it is? She's like, she memorizes the numbers and she knows all the numbers. So she knows the number that is yours. She knows the number that is for my husband, the one that's mine, and stuff like that, right? And I was like, that is so interesting. Why does she know numbers and she can't? I was so baffled because I didn't understand it. And my sister said, well, because she needs to count money. So she knows how to read numbers. And to me, that was a really big revelation, right? And, Disney is my favorite example that I use when I talk about digital transformation, because everybody knows Disney. It's not a technology company. And most people are like, Disney, digital transformation? What are you talking about, right? But what Robert Iger did over a 17-year period was to focus on digital transformation of the business, right? And to come up with a distribution network for the content that he was creating, right? So he created a content pipeline and he created a distribution pipeline. And when the pandemic hit, right, everybody's stocks tanked, right, including Disney. At that point, I bought Disney, and people were like, why are you buying Disney? I said, just watch. Because they didn't understand that, they were like, yeah, but the theme parks are closed, and, like, who's going to go to Disney World? Who's going to go to, Disneyland? And I said, nobody, but I said, Disney is going to launch Disney Plus. And once they launch Disney Plus, I said, that stock is going to go back up and it's going to have really high returns, right? And then they announced that they were going to launch Disney Plus, and they launched it in Europe. And within, just a couple of months, they were able to hit their 2024 projections. 2024, 3 years from now. The projections that they had in terms of users, in terms of revenue, they hit within a few months, right? So a lot of this is thanks to the pandemic, right? But it just really shows you the power of technology, the power of being prepared, the power of 17 years of work, right? So it is a book that I would recommend for everyone to read, right? And when you're reading it, pay attention to how he integrated technology into the business, the different, sort of, and how he created those content pipelines, and how he really, so he became friends with Steve Jobs before Steve Jobs passed away, and that friendship actually accelerated his innovative thinking and how he approached Disney as a whole, right? And it's really, really interesting to sort of see where he's taken it, and the fact that he has now positioned Disney and future-proof Disney, right? Whereby a lot of similar businesses are simply not going to make it, are simply not going to exist, right? And now you can see that Disney is forming content partnerships on the continent, right? So there's a Nigerian animation company that they've just signed a contract with to start producing African superhero series, right? So their next move is going to be the continent, right? Disney Plus will be here soon with African animated content. We're going to make that stock go even higher. So they're a company that is completely ready. And I think when you have those type of examples where you really understand, where the company, you grew up with that company, your kids, your grandkids probably, Disney content, and Disney also owns the Marvel franchise. So anyone who's into Marvel, that's Disney, that's Robert Iger's work. Star Wars, the same thing, right? So he's really, and then obviously Pixar as well. Disney owns Pixar. So there's like so much that he did in terms of that content pipeline, and content is what really drives also, or accelerates digital transformation and accelerates consumption, because you need sort of a product that people can consume in order to really build that, that traction and that pipeline and that uptake in digital products. A window of opportunity, so let's not waste it. The way that we don't waste it is if we collectively understand it, collectively ensure that our children are positioned properly for the opportunities of the future, right? That we understand what the skills are that are actually going to be required in this digital economy, right? And that we make sure that our children are future-proofed and future-ready, and they are global citizens, and they understand how to play in this global technology ecosystem, right? And as we do that, we also, need to make sure that we carry other people along, right? The people who are less privileged, because there is still a massive divide between people who are privileged and who are less privileged across the continent, right? And we need to make sure that that divide, right? Because, so I always say that there are so many different digital divides, right? So I've already spoken about the generational digital divide, which I think is really big on the continent. But then there's also, there's the global digital divide that everybody sort of has defined as the digital divide, where you sort of say, okay, people in developed countries are far more ahead and far more advanced with technology than in emerging countries, right? Or emerging economies. Now, in these emerging economies, there's also a local digital divide, right? Where, because access is defined by how much money you have, right? So, that then becomes a really big problem. So we really need to, as countries, also focus on how do you democratize access to technology? How do you ensure that you carry everyone along, right? Because if not, that gap that is there locally will widen, right? And as that gap locally widens, it means that it becomes even bigger when compared to the global gap that is already there, right? So we must make sure that we develop policies that are inclusive, that we develop technology that is inclusive, that we push for policies that ensure that there is easy access to broadband, for example, right? Understanding that we all have some type of role to play in getting people to start using technology, to educating people. So when you learn about digital transformation, please also make sure that you pass that knowledge on, right? When you learn about, like I said, the convergence of financial literacy and digital literacy, when you start, sort of, taking advantage of the fact that everything is now at your fingertips, please share that knowledge with people who need it even more than you, right? So that knowledge, sort of has a snowball and compound effect, and really just becomes bigger and bigger, right? Because I think we need to each individually sort of contribute to accelerating this digital transformation journey for the continent in order for us to actually have any type of results, right? Because the truth is that there's not a single person that will benefit from it if not everybody can benefit from it.
Mm-hmm. No single person can benefit from it. Yeah, definitely 100%. This is just amazing. And honestly, like, thank you for everything that you shared with us this evening. I think a couple of things that meant a lot to me is the patience part. We need to be patient, but we need to persist and work towards the changes that we want to see in policy making and all of that. It's a game that we need to play. I just want to rephrase a couple of things that you said because I felt like they're very powerful and important. It's a game that we need to play, but we need to educate ourselves in order to do so, to not leave anyone behind. Think about the compound interest. When we work together and build off of each other, then it's better, more exponential growth for everyone. So thank you so much, Nkemdi, for your time and for your honesty and for your intellect and everything. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for everyone who has tuned in, and also for everyone who is still going to watch this once it gets published.
Yes, Richard said, thank you. I learned a lot from you. So I'm really happy that you learned from Nkem today. Thank you for being here, for the people who are here live now. And I hope you enjoyed. For the people who are going to watch it on YouTube later, recorded. We do have another interview, another webinar with Sophie at the end of February. That's going to be about what can you do with what you have when it comes to digital transformation. So with the little that you have, what can you do right now? Again, thank you so much again. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day if it's daytime, and good evening if it's nighttime and you're wherever you are in the world. Bye.